Welcome to Get Rich, the podcast that helps you do just that. Get rich and stay rich. Hey, I'm Molly Benjamin. I'm the founder of Ladies Finance Club, one of Australia's largest financial education platforms for women. But before I started helping thousands of women take control with their money, I was a hot financial mess when it came to my own finances. And not the fun kind of hot, more like crying in a supermarket wondering where all my money went kind of hot. But here's the thing, if I can go from financial mess to owning a share portfolio, investing in property and building wealth, then you can too. My mission is simple, to make women rich. Because when we have financial freedom, we have choices, confidence, and control over our future. Every week on Get Rich, I sit down with some of the best experts in the industry to break down how we can all start investing, growing our money, and creating long-term financial security without the jargon, boring bits, or overwhelm. Because when women get rich, we don't just change our lives, we change the world. So if you're ready to start making some smart money moves, hit that subscribe button and let's get rich together. Welcome back to another episode of Get Rich, the podcast that helps you do just that. Get rich and stay rich. I'm your host, Molly Benjamin, founder of Ladies Finance Club, one of Australia's largest financial education platforms. And today we are jumping into our property update with self-confessed property nerd Arjun Paliwal and director and founder of InvestorKit. Now, if you've been tossing up whether to rentvest or buy a home to live in, confused by the headlines or wondering why the market still feels so hot, this episode is for you because Arjun and I unpack what's actually really happening across Australia right now, the suburbs seeing strong growth, the data points that actually matter. And we'll also dive into the big questions that everyone's asking. And literally these questions have come from our community. So how to avoid becoming an accidental investor, what to look for in a great investment property, how to spot pressure tactics from selling agents. Plus, we also get into climate change risk, flood zones, insurance issues, and how to factor environmental risk into your property strategy. So we cover a lot in a short period of time. We've made it action-packed, and we always love to hear from you. So if you have questions, reach out to us at Instagram. We'll make sure we answer them on the next property update. All right, let's get into it. Arjun, welcome back for another property update. I love these sessions. They're always so juicy. And again, we are answering the questions that our community have. So I guess just to quickly get started, could you give us a general overview of what are we seeing this month?
So this month has been one of the busiest months in property for many, many years. You'd think that with interest rates not quite as low as they should be in many people's thoughts, that the market wouldn't be as active, but it's been really active. We've had many markets grow by almost 1% over the last month. Now, that's not a small number because 1%, if you annualize that, is close to 12%, which is almost double the national averages. So you've got some that are doing 0.6, 0.7, but some over 1%. So I feel like when you're at this sort of level, it's kind of reminded me of 2021 times when you had some very strong growth. Now, not all the fundamentals are in play to the same level as 2021, so I don't expect it to be that strong, but it's definitely rising.
Awesome. And a question I'm getting so much from women, and I think it's really they're getting a bit of analysis paralysis. It's really stopping them from making that next move is Molly, I don't know whether I should rentvest or I should buy to live. So if people are out there, they're unsure what to do you have any thoughts around this?
Yes, I got a bit of a formula that's helped me on my journey and helped many others as well from what I've seen. If your journey is looking at it from a perspective of, I don't feel like I could stick at this home that I want to buy and I can buy from my current budgets for 5 to 10 years, then the idea here, and I know life's unpredictable, by the way, but if you don't imagine yourself being there for 5 to 10 years, rentvesting is the way to go. And the only reason I say that is for one simple reason. Too many Aussies become accidental investors and then pull back their actual performance long term. And for those that don't know what an accidental investor is, it's someone who goes, wow, I want to get the first home. I want to get on the ladder. Let me find where I can right near me in the best areas in the most affordable price possible. And then they go, don't like that, don't like that, don't like this. Okay, I'm going to go for this really entry-level unit in a market where I don't look at it from the data and numbers, and I'm going to go move in. Couple of years go by, they go, my income's gone up, the journey of life, you get more experience from your 20s to 30s and 40s, Then you get more income growth from your 20s to 30s to 40s, and you have different goals and dynamics, whether it be kids, family, illnesses, health, time to be near certain family members. Then you go, I want to upsize. And then
Yeah.
instead of going, oh, well, let me get rid of that first home completely and just move up and move across, you firstly now go, well, I like that first place. Let me turn that into an investment property. And it was never bought for to be an investment property. So that's my big tip. Like there's many different ways I can break down more tailored scenarios, but if I just simply think over the next 5 to 10 years, if you can't imagine staying in that one place and building your wealth and building other parts of your life and your career whilst you live in that centered place, then rentvesting is your go-to.
That's so funny you said that because I literally had this conversation the other day with a friend. She did exactly what you said. She just bought where she could afford close to her. And now she's like, I don't think I want to stay in this state anymore. And I'm like, oh, like I wish she had spoken to a buyer's agent because that will be the difference between a lot of money in her lifetime. If only she'd got the right advice on that one. So I guess then if someone's like, do you know what? I think I want to go down that rest vent path because life is unpredictable. I don't know where I'm going to be in the next kind of 3 years, let alone 10 years. What should someone be looking for in an investment property? What numbers really matter?
So the first part is that if you take a step back and realize houses as investments in the majority of areas in Australia grow well long term, you can pull that weight off your shoulders and go, long-term growth is going to be okay now that I'm making this decision. Now you come back to what matters. So what matters is these short-term metrics in housing markets that really drive what we call as pressure. The beauty about housing performance as an investment is that there's never been a time in history where a house market has boomed when there was lots of listings available, or a rental market has boomed when there's lots of properties available for rent. Or a house market's boomed and places took forever to sell, or a house market boomed and auction clearance rates were extremely low and nothing was selling at auction. So I just gave you some never happened before with some doomsday type things to look for. Flip it. Just flip it and go, well, where are the listings super tight? Where in the market are there no rental properties? Where is auction clearance rates quite high? Where do things sell within a few days or a week or weeks? And then that will help you from the metrics perspective go, okay, people clearly want it. I see a lot of people around me. And lots of people's mistake they make is they want to avoid competition because they feel like I should be the only one that gets this.
Yeah.
It's great at the start if things are about to turn. But if you want capital growth, invite competition because growth happens with competition.
Yeah. And I guess just from obviously you guys are buyers agents, so you and buyers strategists, so you are out there doing the deals. But I guess from the other's perspective of the real estate agents, do you find that from speaking with customers, they've really tried to pressure people into making maybe not the best decision?
Absolutely. It's an unfair advantage that sellers have is that the majority of sales in Australia are represented with a sales agent. And so the real estate agent who's helping sell that property is basically going to fight for the best dollar, fight for the fastest deal, and fight to make sure that you don't have every information that would make you feel otherwise. Now, they're going to disclose what they need to as you ask them, but if you don't ask all the right questions, you don't know everything that you need to know. If you don't look in comparing properties the right way, you don't get everything you need to know. So the thing is, buyers are massively underrepresented. And that's literally why I do what I do, because we're trying to equal the playing field, right? Which is like going, hey, let's equal the playing field so you've got someone who's purchased over 2,000 properties on your team. Or let's equal the playing field so you've got someone who does nothing but look at prices. So when someone puts this list price, and look, as much as underquoting is quote unquote illegal, it happens every day. And so as a buyer, you go, well, do I just want to go off the listing and get high hopes? Or do I want to basically go, well, this person sells on average 8% above listing price all the time. So maybe instead of getting my hopes excited on this property, I'll go in and have a look at it, but I'm going to do comparable price analysis to the T with a professional on my side. And they're not going to get fooled by, this property's got another offer that's higher than this because you've got your range to stick in. So yes, there's a lot of pressure that goes on. I feel bad for buyers that have no representation. Yeah. Some occasionally get it right, but a lot sadly get it wrong.
And I feel like it goes a little bit something like, I'm looking for a property. I speak to a real estate agent. They're like, this one's really hot. It's going. I go, what should I do? Mom, Dad, like, what do you reckon I should do? They're like, oh my gosh, put the offer in. You don't want to miss out. And then boom, you're in this situation where you might have a little bit of a lemon. And I only say this because I've heard this story quite a few times from our members.
Yes, spot on.
And so when you guys are looking at buying property around Australia, and you do this so often every single day, how much are you factoring in climate change? So like flood risk, environmental risk, and how much should our listeners be factoring that into a decision on buying?
This is super tough. It's very, very tough. It's a great question because on one side, you see the many sad stories across the globe of lives impacted with climate change. On another side, you see mapping that was released 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. And then you look at the mapping today and you go, well, that suburb is not under. It's still here. And so then it's tough as a buyer or an investor who's thinking there and just going, I'm getting pulled in both directions. One is showing me mapping that has a photo of this time and basically telling me that this is all going to be gone by 2020 and 25. And then, hold on a minute, it's not. And another side is showing me that all of this is happening. So as an investor, you're firstly super confused. So here's what you can do. Firstly, I look at it from this way. Mortgages and banks are doing loan terms in certain areas for 30 years, even sometimes 40 years. Mm-hmm. Number two is insurance companies are often looking at this and they want to avoid massive payouts. And then number three is there is studies done based on data available to you. And data available to you is based on what's an event that's occurred in the past, like a 2011 flood in Brisbane or a 2021 flood in parts of Sydney's Hawkesbury region. And so historic events, insurances, and banks. And so when you look at all of these, unfortunately, as of right now, these are the only three tools you have available to you that have proof because they're someone that doesn't want to lose money and go under business because they have their best interests, the insurers and the banks. And then B is events that have occurred. And so you use these tools as what we call due diligence in property, and then you try your best to avoid them. Now, does it mean that someone else's 2100 or 2080 map that says all of Sydney's gone, can happen? Sure. I mean, I'm not a scientist here. Maybe it could. But at the same time, we've got to acknowledge that we've got these three levers: current events and council flood maps. Yeah. We've got insurance and the risk of cost, to protect it. Yeah. And then we've got banks willing to lend against it. Yeah. So from that basis, unfortunately, these are the three core tools that you have that are there now. But it's very confusing if you add the ever-ending layers of maps from everyone around the world, because one person will say, well, don't touch half of Sydney because the water goes to here. The other person will say, don't touch all of Blue Mountains and the other half of Sydney. And so it's tough because as a buyer, it's like, do you live in that fear? Yeah. And then you're only leaving yourself with one patch of Sydney. Or do you go, well, these are three tools that are here today that I can use today, and you adapt with the time. So I feel like that's some of the core considerations your risk appetite needs to consider. But for us, it's banks, it's insurances, it's flood mapping tools, what's available to us today.
Absolutely, which makes total sense. Just a couple more questions for our community. Another one was just around, Molly, what are the ongoing costs and unseen costs in property investing that I need to factor in for a house? As far as are there how much should I budget for maintenance? What about any additional taxes, land tax, things like that? Do you have any kind of high level, these are the 5 costs you need to think about in property investing?
Absolutely. So we'll start it from the purchasing of property all the way through to ownership and selling. So from purchasing property, stamp duty, lawyers, pest and building, a bit of maintenance management fund, we'll call it 20 to 25K per property is a nice buffer we like to have as a buffer overall. Yeah. But then now if you go these numbers, they're the way in. Stamp duty, depending on the state, could be 3 to 6%, Victoria and South Australia being the highest, and then New South Wales, Queensland being more towards the lower end, and everywhere else in the middle. And then, of course, if you go over to buyer's agents, they range between sort of 10K to 45K, depending on a premium home or something that goes even higher if you're buying owner occupies, which there's percentages of purchase prices, 1.6 to 2% sometimes. And then you've got more fixed fee for services from 10 to 45K, depending on the purchase. And then lawyers, pest and building, from $400 to $1,000 for pest and building, and then lawyers from about that sort of $800 to $2,500 roughly. And so these are just some top level at purchase. Now, when it comes to owning the property, I gave this one little rule I like to have, which was per 5 to 800K worth of value of property, I keep 20 to 25K in offset as a buffer.
Nice.
And this covers you for maintenance, vacancy, unexpected bills, slight cosmetic increases or improvements you want to do at some point in the future, peace of mind in case work or things change like that. You've got a bit of a kitty there. But if we run through the numbers expenses, number one, with property management, they range across Australia from like 4% to 8.8, even 10 in some cities, like in Perth, it's quite high. But I would just go choose 8.8% as your number for everywhere. So you just know that it's going to be higher and you've got some buffer. The second thing is, even though, yes, in Australia, you'll get all this notice period for vacancy out of a tenant, and then you can find someone during the vacancy period, that is the notice period. You might not ever have an actual vacancy, but just factor in 2 weeks vacancy every single year to be conservative. Then from there, you can do one of two rules for maintenance. Some people like to do the 1% rule. Other people like to do a couple of K rule.
Okay.
And that's just your maintenance buffer. Now, the thing with maintenance, just on that note, is people react to it way too much as well. And they do end up holding themselves back mentally of their next few purchases because of maintenance. People have to think of it from a point of view of A, what about the tax deductions or depreciation? B, what about if you do the improvement and now you don't see an issue for 5 to 10 plus years, plus you also actually improve the property. So it's not just a cost, it's an improvement. And then C is, if I told you today, Molly, that, hey, would you like to have 6% growth that comes down to 5% every year, or not have any growth at all because you're not making a move? Which one would you like to take, right?
Yeah, I'll take the
The
growth.
first one, right? Even if 6 comes to 5 and you take away 1% of maintenance on $1 million property, by the way, having 10,000 of maintenance every single year is highly unlikely.
Yeah.
But if you chuck that in, it's just an example. And then we go through rates, water, council, and insurances, and a bit of land taxes. And the rule here is, if you just go rates at 2 to 3K, insurance at 1,500 to 2,500, water at 1,200 to 1,800, and then you have taxes between 2 to 5K depending on the state. And by taxes, you can bucket them as compliance, like gas and electrical, rental compliance, smoke alarm compliance, inspection fees, letting fees. It just allows you to bucket that nicely. And this will really help you then go, okay, I've got my systems on check.
Yeah.
Most times, Molly, it ends up being between 30% roughly to 35% of your property's income is going to all these different buckets, not including your mortgage. And that's a quick back of the napkin if you just wanted to test things out.
Great. And with water and electricity, do your tenants pay that or do you pay that?
It depends on the way the property is set up on things like water, because some properties you need water usage certificates and you need like the separate meters. And then as a result, you can keep the fixed charge to yourself and then the actual usage charged to the tenant. Also depends on the property type. Some people don't have that separation and they've got unit blocks and duplexes and triplexes. Electricity is almost always the usage of the tenant, but it depends on, again, how you set up the property. But those are some common things there. And I think another thing on the expenses as well, Molly, is that we need to look at income and expenses. As you go across Australia, the scale of expenses is wild in terms of ranges. You could have a Townsville property with $3,500 insurance bills, or you could have a Rockhampton $4,000 rates and water for the whole 12 months, sometimes even $3,500 for rates alone, then water on top. And it feels crazy. But then you go, well, how much higher is the rent? How much higher is the income? And so if you look at all things, you'll notice that most locations across Australia are quite similar on the bills and the income part. And some can be even surprisingly higher on the income, but they just start normalizing when you put in all the expenses. So my whole thing with expense management and property is don't get too excited, but don't get too upset. It's like this, like try and find this little balance in the middle, realizing that 30 to 35% in most cases of rents can go towards these expenses, and you'll be okay.
And when working with a buyer's agent, would you guys like look at those costings? So I would have a good understanding of like, what am I actually up for?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing of being on the journey with the team around you is that you don't guess, you know. And the guessing part is what hurts investors because investing in the pain is actually not usually financial that goes wrong. It's more mindset. So when you're investing and you feel things you didn't expect, the next decision takes longer. It takes more analysis. It takes more paralysis. And so there have been so many couples I've seen in the journey and even just single investors who've had the position to change their life in 3 to 5 years, but take 10.
Yeah.
And the simple reason why is that if you have things that are unexpected, you second guess. If you think about it. And this is like not just like psychology from investing. Since we were kids, we're wired that way. Like if you had a quote unquote, I have a 2-year-old daughter. So Ruby has an ouchie. It's like if she has an ouchie like falling off the bike, she's not just going to rush back on the bike. She's slowly coming onto it. Yeah. And then she's taking her time. She comes off and she goes, Dad, look, no ouchie. Yeah. And I'm like even that alone is her taking time, being more careful, thinking about it. On the smallest examples, like a little bicycle fall, the whole life actually works that way as well.
Yeah, no, that's such a good analogy. And then final question, which infrastructure matters when choosing a suburb? Like, is there a golden rule? Like, it should be near, a kilometer of a school or a Bunnings warehouse or public transport. Are there any like rules of thumbs of what like we should be looking for when choosing a suburb?
You've just inspired me for my next blog take. I think we might look at the Bunnings and Macca's myths that everyone chucks out there. See if they're a myth or see if they're legends that are true. Yes. But the main thing is, Molly, our research so far indicates that infrastructure makes no difference. Mm-hmm. And the simple thing is that most things are priced in for what they have. Mm-hmm. There are moments in time when new infrastructure arrives and it changes things for that moment and you get these blips. But then as time goes on, you go back to the standard of what that area has. So I'll give you an example. There are suburbs in the Hills district of Sydney where they don't have train stations. Yep. They're a bit away from it all. They don't have a shopping centre and they don't have any like quote unquote epic schools. Mm-hmm. And they're in this little weird middle that just doesn't have all of that. And if you spoke to someone at the barbecue, all they'd say is like how they don't have that. You should go to this place and you should go to that place. Now, take a moment to sit back and go, if you got the exact same square meterage of land and you got the same similar house and you just moved it, if the price stayed the same and you got all these amazing things, be my guest. Now you get better things for the same money, but the price doesn't stay the same. Yeah. If you go to Borkham Hills, you get all of this land that you don't get in parts of other suburbs surrounding it. Yeah. But if you go to Rouse Hill, you get the small land, but you've got all these amenities. But the dollar square meter adjusts, what's happening adjusts, and long term, if you trend out the growth rates, they're not very different. So I think the main thing is don't feel so compelled to have all of those things from an investment perspective. Yeah. It's as simple as, is more selling than what's available? Is it selling faster? And is there a genuine price that you can get right to avoid overpaying?
Arjun, once again, this has been so informative. Thank you so much for joining us for this month's property update.
Thanks, Molly. See you all again soon.